Hi, everybody. My name is Cecee.
And I am Aaron Thomas.
We work for the Crisis Center of West Texas. The Crisis Center provides services for survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault here in our community. We have a shelter, free counseling services, free legal services, anything that a survivor may need, we can help them with. It doesn't matter if the situation happened yesterday or 20 years ago, we can provide these free services. We also have prevention education, which is what I mainly do. So I'm out in the community, in schools, and partnering with people like the Cactus House to get this information out, talk to people about topics like we're going to talk about today. And then we have something called BIP.
And BIP stands for Batterers Intervention and Prevention Program. And it's a program where men and women who have been abusive in their relationships, we get together and we have conversations and we try to figure out what happened as to why they became abusive. And then we give them tools and things to help them not be abusive later on. And so it's something that, we as an agency, have taken, and we started, having these conversations with the students as well, the young students at ECYC, and we're trying to, teach them, ways to be good people versus being abusive, because a lot of times that's a lot of their family and our household. That's all they have seen, and so we're trying to come in and help with the prevention part of it, as far as giving them the information needed to not be abusive.
And last time we did a live stream, we talked about consent. If you have not seen that video, check it out on the Cactus House YouTube page.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we get started, I do want to say, if you're watching live, feel free to ask us any questions in the comment section, and we will answer them as we go.
For sure.
You want to introduce the topic for tonight?
So tonight's topic, I think, is going to be fascinating because a lot of times we talk about red flags in relationships, and we don't ever talk about the green flags in relationships, things that make people attracted to other people. So tonight we're going to be talking about red flags and green flags in relationships. But we're going to be doing the green flags first. And so, Cecee, did you have a green flag?
I want to say that I love starting with green flags because, like Aaron said, we all know the term red flag. That's a common term used, red flag,
yeah, for sure.
Not a good person, or not a good idea to get involved with them.
Yeah.
But we don't often talk about green flags. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's the same thing as far as being thankful for things. That's why most of our classes that we start off with, we ask people to tell us something that you're thankful for, because it's so easy to just go live through life and just blow past the things we should be thankful for. And I think it's the same in relationships where we're not looking at the positive of it. We're trying to see okay, what are they doing to make me to push me away or not make me want to be with that person. So I just think it's just kind of how society is at this point, where we don't focus on the good in people. We try to find the bad, and that's kind of what we focus on.
And I think this kind of theory that you're talking about, we could totally go off on a tangent and talk about in life in general. We might know the things we don't want out of life.
Yeah. Or
the type of job we don't want.
Yeah.
But what do you really want? What are you really passionate about?
Yeah.
That could be a whole nother thing, y'all.
But
sure. But let's get started with some green flags. I'll start with one. A huge green flag for me, and I think it's really important, is noting how the person you're dating or interested in treats other people around them.
Yeah.
Treats other people around them. And when I say that, I say it in really general sense, because I mean family members, people just they're passing on the street, or waitresses and waiters, just how they treat other people.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty big one. And a green flag for me is kind of the same as yours, is how they treat elder people, people who are older than them.
Oh.
So, are they being patient? Are they showing compassion? Are they being respectful to people who have lived their life and now they're kind of on the back end of it?
Right.
So I really pay attention to how she's interacting with people who are older than her, because that tells me a lot about her and her energy. So.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about like tipping. That always comes up when we talk
Yeah.
about green flags with people.
Yeah.
What always comes up is like, oh, if they tip well at like a restaurant.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I am a 100% believer in that.
Yeah.
I know my sister, she had put something on Facebook about how she went out on a date with a guy, and the meal was like $100 and he tipped $2. And so she was like, yeah, I'm not talking to him again.
Oh my gosh.
That to me, that's not a green flag. That's a red flag.
That's a
to
huge
me,
red flag.
because,
oh my gosh.
if you're not going to, take care of the people who are taking care of you in that moment,
Yeah.
Will you take care of me? If I'm
Like
sick,
later
or
on.
if I need help in any way.
Yeah, and I think that always comes up first and a lot when we talk about like things to look for in a partner or green flags, because when you first start dating someone, typically the first date you go on is like going out to eat together, like going to a restaurant. So I think that's kind of why it is always something that comes up. But I think beyond that, even like when people go to restaurants and like you eat and you're done eating, people who like try to clean the table up a little bit, like
Yeah.
if you have someone to come and bust the table after, like even stacking plates or like just putting everything together so it's not a mess would also be like a green flag for me.
Yeah, me
Is that
too.
too far?
No, it's,
Okay.
I'm also there too, where, there's people that say, well, this is what they get paid to do. I get that, but you don't have to, be messy about doing it.
Right. Don't you wanna make their
have
job easier?
Yeah, you don't have to put everything everywhere. You can make it easier. Yeah, I pay attention to that
I
too.
would think you would want to make it easier. And right when you said that, in my head, I pictured like someone driving and then on the side of the road, someone employed by the city picking up trash.
Yeah.
And someone just throwing trash out the window.
Yeah.
How, like, the red flag.
Yeah.
Disrespect.
Disrespect. But the green flag would be, the tipping, how you treat your waitress or waiter, and then also, kind of picking up the table as you go and not leaving it a huge
Pushing
mess.
in your chair.
Yeah. Pushing in your chair. Yeah, for sure. Another green flag to me would be how generous are they? Do you feel like they would give the shirt off their back if it would help someone in need? And I really pay attention to that, because I have, a giving heart. And so I want to make sure that the person that, I'm with also has a giving heart, because if I have a giving heart and she doesn't, and I give and she's upset because I'm giving,
Right.
to me, it could create a lot of tension that doesn't need to be there. And so, being generous and having them, give to me is a green flag.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with you. And that could even expand beyond partners and like friends.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, people you would
sure.
consider your friends.
Yeah,
Making sure that they also have a generous heart.
for sure. Friends. I think another green flag for me is if it feels natural. I feel like a lot of times people try to they piece their life together for the person that they're with currently. And a lot of times when people are doing that, it doesn't feel natural.
Yeah.
I've been on, some dates where it felt like, she was trying to portray this person, I was trying to portray this person, and no one was really being their true, authentic self.
Right.
And we felt that the energy was off in the restaurant. So a green flag to me is if I can go into a relationship or on a date, and I can just be myself 100%, and she's herself 100%. We could talk and just be real. So to me, that's a big green flag.
Yeah, I would agree. Another one that I think is a green flag is your partner isn't asking you to change yourself.
For sure.
You know, when you get into a relationship and they ask you to maybe change small things,
Yeah.
like, can you remember to not leave the
Toilet seat up.
right? That's not like changing the core of somebody.
I mean,
right?
technically it is. We had a whole conversation about
We
this.
did. We might have argued a little bit about it, but but you know what I'm saying? Like smaller things versus like this is their passion, and like I want you to change that about you.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's something that you really have to be careful about if someone is trying to make you change a big piece of you, like who you are. That's something that is not a green flag. It is a red flag.
Right. And I've heard of this, like, I mean, it's like a joke or whatever, but how when people get into a relationship and each relationship they're in, they like change their personality. And the joke is like, oh, remember when you were with this person, you were like so country because he was country, or like you were so into this because he was so into this. You know what I mean? I think that you have to realize and really actively not try to like lose yourself, right? You're two separate people.
And I honestly think if there's an issue in a relationship, that's a big reason why. Where someone is in like 50 different pieces and they don't know who their true authentic self is.
Right.
Like they have been, the cowgirl, that he has been like the person who likes volleyball, or, he's kind of, they have pieced themselves, because they try to be what that person wants them to be, and then when they get into these other relationships, they try to do the same exact thing, and it just snowballs until eventually, that person's gonna have to look in the mirror and deal with like who they are as a person, and then not deviate from it from that point forward. If they want to have a strong, healthy relationship.
Right.
You can't have a strong, healthy relationship in pieces. It just doesn't happen that way.
We've all heard of the cliche term, you have to love yourself before you can love someone else. But I think you could even say the same as like you have to know yourself before you can like truly know someone else.
Yeah, for sure. Or you have to know yourself before you can even love yourself. I mean, if we're going deeper into it, you know what I mean? Like you have to know yourself in order to love yourself.
That's 100% true.
Yeah. And you can't, if you don't know yourself or love yourself, how can you then express that to someone else?
Right.
So it's just something to always think about. So we kind of touched on it just a little bit, but another green flag for me is if they make sacrifices, but not too many.
Okay.
Right. So I'm not sacrificing my core to help to make you feel good about yourself. There's still the independence that I have within me, and I want you to still have that independence as well.
Right.
But the little sacrifices, like you said, putting down the toilet seat.
Sacrifice?
That's a sacrifice.
Okay.
Putting your socks or your clothes in the hamper.
Yes. Not throwing them next to the hamper.
Not throwing them next to the hamper. Learning how, if she's saying you're not a good communicator, learning how to communicate, like reading books or watching videos to hone in on your skills of communication.
Yeah.
So to me, like there has to be a little bit of sacrifice when it comes to a relationship, and if someone is doing that, then to me that's a green flag.
Right, and I think like when you say sacrifice, sometimes people might like freak out and be like, well, you shouldn't sacrifice too much, which is true. You shouldn't sacrifice too much.
For sure.
But the right person's not going to ask you to sacrifice too much.
100%.
Right? So if they're asking you to sacrifice too much, you shouldn't tell yourself, well, a relationship's all about sacrifice.
Yeah.
No. There are boundaries and limits to what's too much sacrifice. Or there are ways where someone could even use manipulation to be like, oh, like you should be sacrificing for me. Yeah. I'm your boyfriend or I'm your husband. You should sacrifice, Yeah. So I think sacrifice is necessary, like you said, but there's also boundaries.
So to me, commitment involves sacrifice, right? But you don't have to sacrifice your whole being for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit more about that? Like, commitment means sacrifice.
Or involves sacrifice. Like
Okay.
in order for me to commit to someone, I'm going to have to sacrifice. Because I mean, you're coming into this two different people.
Right.
So you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit in order to like mesh or to
Okay.
grow together.
Yeah, I agree.
You just can't continue being, doing what you're doing and expecting her just to follow along and vice versa. She can't just do what she does and then expect you to follow along. There has to be some level of sacrifice if you're willing to commit to each other.
I agree.
Yeah. But I also think in green flags, we're talking about boundaries.
Yeah.
You talked about it a little bit ago where the people that you're with, they're not going to overstep their boundaries, and if they do, you have a conversation and they don't do it again. And so that to
100%.
me is a green flag as well. Like if someone who is respectful of you and your boundaries.
Yes.
And I know this is something that happens a lot in my men's class for BIP, where if a woman is trying to leave because she is upset or angry and the guy gets in front of the door.
Like blocks it.
Blocks the door.
Okay.
At that point, her boundary is now being crossed because you are preventing her from leaving, which is not a good thing.
Like a physical boundary.
Yeah, like a physical boundary. And if that boundary then, if you're holding her or not letting her leave, and the cops get called, you get in trouble for it, right? And so it's kind of like that with relationships too, where if you don't find ways to see other people's boundaries, you either push them away or they push you away because you're not respecting the things that they need in order to have a good relationship.
And kind of a little bit more into that, I feel like, a lot of these times with these relationships that either end up failing or things end up falling out, people are forcing a lot of it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or like forcing it for too long.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just like bound to not work out. Yeah. And I think, talking about the boundaries, if someone is crossing your boundary and like that is something that you have set and that is your boundary and you have told them like this is my boundary and you've crossed it, and they continue to do so, that's not when you should bend that boundary to make the other person comfortable. Yeah. That's when you need to think like, okay, maybe this isn't right. Instead of continuing to bend, to make the other person comfortable, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think another green flag for me is when someone is quick to give credit and they're slow to place blame. I think that is something that a lot of people are looking for in relationships, where you have someone who allows you to be human and allows someone to allow you. You have someone that allows you to make mistakes, and they're not going to just immediately pounce on that mistake and make you feel like crap because you made that mistake.
Right.
But also, if you have done something good, to give you credit immediately and not just like not say anything. And it kind of goes with what we talked about earlier about being thankful for the things that we have in our life, and same thing about like the green flags in relationships. We don't talk about it a lot because naturally we tend to try to find like well they're not doing this and this,
the negative.
But I feel like there's a lot of people who do good. Yeah. But they're not getting seen for the good that they do. But if they do bad, that's what it seems like. That's what that person is seeing. So.
Like rewarded.
Yeah.
For like the good that they're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
And so there's 3 A's and this for a green flag. So this is 3 A's, which is appreciation, affirmation, and attention. So to me, if I'm in a relationship and I'm when I say attention, I'm not talking about attention all the time. I'm talking about, quality attention, where, we're spending time with each other, learning about each other. But I think, in relationships, a green flag would be if someone is showing me, or give me the affirmation, attention, and appreciation. I think it's much needed in all relationships in order for them to grow and strive and be the best that they can be. So
I agree. I love that.
yeah.
So another green flag that I have for me it has to deal with mental health. And I think this is something important to talk about with your partner. And if your partner is accepting of like your mental health state and is understanding when you're not having a great mental health day or week, I think that's a huge green flag because I think it falls into like the compassion category, right? An empathy category. So I think that's another green flag too.
Yeah. If they go to counseling with you because you've dealt with things in the past and they want to work with you and they want to be there for you. So yeah, 100%. That is a green flag for sure. And I guess now we can kind of jump into the red flags. These are things that we always talk about, and people know a lot of red flags, and so we'll just kind of jump into it. So one red flag that you think could break up a relationship or make you think, oh, is this person the right one for me? Is what, Cecee? What do you think?
One red flag for me would be dismissing your partner. Like if I were to be in a relationship and they just dismiss things that I say, I think that would be a really big red flag, and just not taking your ideas or your opinion on things into consideration at all. That's a huge red flag.
So pretty much just they're not listening to what it is that you're saying.
Right, or not listening, but also not valuing.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Right, because I think those are kind of two different categories. Sometimes we aren't listening to people, but not in the way where we're not paying attention, right? But I mean, when they don't value, they hear you, they listen, but they don't value your opinion.
I got you. So what are some of the things that they're doing to, I guess, make you feel that they're not valuing your opinion?
For example, say you're making a decision as a couple together.
Okay.
Right? And you're trying to figure out what decision you're going to make about something in your life.
Okay.
And you say your opinion and they just completely disregard it, don't take it into consideration, and make their own choice for you as a couple.
Yeah, I got you.
They're completely just dismissing what you have to say and they're not valuing it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does, 100%. A red flag for me is if someone is trying to move too fast. I think you don't really get to know a person until you're with that person for a little bit.
Right.
A lot of times, that first 3 to 18 months, there's a front that person is putting on to kind of, I guess, show you that this is the person that they can be, but that's not who they really are, right? And so a lot of times, we fall in love with the person that is, 3 months in,
right?
But that person 3 months in is not really who that person really is, and so then you're stuck, believing that person is the one that you fell in love with, and so to me, moving too fast is not allowing you or that person just to kind of grow with each other.
Right.
And if someone's trying to make you, move in or, marry, quickly, to me, that's just a red flag of what's really going on. Why do you feel the need to move so quickly? How come we just can't take our time and kind of grow in this relationship
and learn about each other?
For sure.
I think that's interesting because when you said that, I was thinking the things that I love about my partner now after being together for more than 3 years, I didn't know for the first 6 months of us hanging out.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because you get to know someone more and more, right?
Yeah.
Over time, and get to get to know them more deeply.
Yeah.
So those things that I really love about him now, I had no idea about them in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Moving too quick is wanting to move too quick is a huge red flag.
But I think we talked about the different types of love, and I think that love is infatuation. Like you don't see anything bad about this person. Like everything is good that you see, and I think they had an example of Kim Kardashian and Chris Humphries, where they got married and 72 days later they got divorced because they were just so blinded to just who that person was at that moment. But whenever you take those blinders off and you see that person for who they are, you don't like it. So yeah, to me that's 100% a red flag. Moving too fast. Another red flag for me is being too clingy, not being independent. Like you have to have that person, and this is geared more towards the guys as far as guys should know how to cook and clean and take care of themselves. That's just my personal opinion. And I feel like a red flag, if I was a woman in a relationship, is if a guy was too dependent on me to do everything.
Right.
Because at some point, that you are not that man's mother, you are his wife, right? And so there has to be a correlation or a shared responsibility. And if you do everything for him and he's not really doing anything for himself, to me that's a turnoff, and that would be a red flag in a relationship. Now some people like that, and I'm not hating on that, but as a man, I feel like you should know how to at least take care of yourself to a small extent, if need be. Right.
When you first said clingy, I was thinking like physically. Clingy, and like one of my top love languages is physical touch. So like I am like we're like are always touching or whatever. So I was like, oh, but that's one of my love languages. You know what I mean? Like physical touch. So
for sure.
Well, I mean, a little different.
I mean, it could be so, but I think it could cause issues if like you were too clingy and he's like,
don't touch me.
Give me my space. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I
if
agree.
You're always in his bubble, he doesn't have time for himself.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to take your partner's needs and wants into consideration.
For sure.
As well.
For sure. I think another red flag, and I think this is something that is big in a lot of relationships, is gaslighting. And gaslighting is the act of manipulating a person by forcing them to question their thoughts, memories, and events occurring around them.
I like that you give the definition because I feel like we hear the word gaslighting a lot, and it's like, oh, what does it even mean? So can you read it again for us?
Yeah, so gaslighting is the act of manipulating a person by forcing them to question their thoughts, memories, and events occurring around them.
Okay, you want to give us an example?
Well, the first thing that popped into my head was that Shaggy song way back when, like in the 2000s. I think it was in the 2000s.
Yeah, I think so too.
Where she's, caught him doing, things, and he's like, it wasn't
cheating.
Me. It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Yeah.
So,
And it's like, I saw you on the camera.
I saw you on the camera.
I physically walked in and saw you with my own eyes.
It wasn't me.
What do you mean it wasn't you?
On the living room sofa, it wasn't me.
Right.
So that to me is like the ultimate gaslighting, where you're manipulating someone and you're making them feel crazy for seeing something that was true. Yeah. And you're saying it's not true.
Yeah.
So.
And then another form of it is like with emotions.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, oh, like you hurt my feelings. It's like, no, I didn't. Yeah. I did not hurt your feelings. What I said wasn't that bad, and I didn't hurt your feelings. Yeah. It's like, no, like my feelings were hurt. Yeah. Don't try to tell me otherwise. Yeah. So I think emotional gaslighting is like really common and something that people don't automatically think as a huge red flag, and I would consider it a huge red flag.
And I would say guys would maybe do it on the opposite end, where they aren't hurt, but they're playing like they're hurt because they want their partner to feel sorry for them.
What? Really?
Yes.
Wait, can you explain that some more? That's so what?
I mean, it happens.
Explain
right?
it.
So kind of how I feel like when you say emotional,
Okay.
you said the women's side of it, where
Right.
they're not taking what you're saying into consideration, or they're trying to say you're crazy about saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on the guy side of it, I feel like not a lot, but some guys, in order to make the situation go their way, they try to manipulate their woman or their spouse into making them feel sorry for them. And so they will come to them and say, you hurt my feelings by saying this or that. Their feelings aren't being hurt, but they want her to feel some type of way.
Right.
And so they shut down, they stop
Damn.
talking, they go into the room.
With the intentions of like manipulating her with it.
Yeah, with the intention of making her feel like she is the one that created this issue.
Right.
And it's really them creating an issue and making her feel bad about it.
That is so twisted.
Yeah, it is.
That's really
Not
bad.
saying I've never done that before in my life, but I have. So, and that's why I can have that conversation and say,
Right.
that's another form of gaslighting that people really don't talk about or know, but it happens. It happens a lot. So, yeah. And what we call that in our industry is stonewalling.
Okay, yeah.
When someone is just like completely, shut off and they're not talking to you, and they're making you feel like crazy or make you feel some type of way. It's called stonewalling, and that's one of the 4 apocalypse in a relationship. If you have, that in a relationship, that's a big red flag that you have to pay attention to, because if it continues to happen, this is it's another form of gaslighting, and he's trying to manipulate or she's trying to manipulate to make you feel some type of way.
Yeah, and since you brought up stonewalling, I want to talk a little bit about it and like the difference between stonewalling and like taking a timeout.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Right? Like stonewalling would be completely shutting off and not talking any further about something and ignoring your partner and just like not coming back to it.
Yeah.
Right? That is stonewalling, and that's like not okay to do. But if you are in an argument with your partner and both of you guys decide to take, say, like a 15, 20-minute break or breather, right, to not let the situation escalate, that's totally fine to do and even advised to do for people who get heated in an argument. They need a little break.
Yeah, for sure.
So taking a break is totally fine. Stonewalling, not so fine.
And the reason why stonewalling isn't fine is because you never have the conversation.
Yeah.
And after a while, all those conversations start to build up, and it builds up into a big explosion, right? And so something as little as, the trash not getting taken out could cause, a huge argument because all the arguments that y'all had before never got dealt with.
Right.
And so, so that's something that, you have to have a conversation about. Like whenever you are taking that time out, you have to find yourself going back to that person and finishing that conversation and coming up with some type of solution before moving on. Because if you don't, it's going to keep piling on for sure. Okay.
I'll go.
Okay.
So another red flag for me that I think is important and that everyone typically does know, but maybe doesn't listen to, is cheating.
Yeah.
So, and I know that's kind of a controversial topic because some people will say, you can repair your relationship and if someone cheats, and I don't disagree with them, but I also think if your partner even cheats on you one time and your gut's telling you, you know what, I can't continue in this, or I think they're going to do it again, then that's a huge red flag, and that is something you should listen to your gut on. Yeah. What do you think about it? Like the two different sides of it.
Once a cheater, always a cheater.
Okay.
People don't like that saying.
Right.
But
again, controversial.
It's one of those things where if they can do it once, they can do it again.
Right.
If they're put in a place where they feel like they're not being appreciated or loved, or something isn't happening that they want to happen, they can always go back out there and it's an immature act, cheating. So
yeah.
But I also I've seen it both ways. I've seen where people are like if I ever get cheated on, I will leave that person. We will never be together again. They got cheated on, right? And they ended up working out the relationship. And I've seen some that was like, yeah, I can work it out. But once they got cheated on, they was like, yeah, I can't. And they walked away.
Yeah.
So it's just, it really is like if you feel like that person can change, but just know, and it should always be in the back of your head, like if they cheat on you once, they can do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, another red flag I feel people have in relationships is one person always blaming the other person, never taking accountability for their actions and the things that they have done. And so I think, to me, that's a big red flag. That's something that you need to pay attention to, because if someone isn't taking accountability for their actions, and they're trying to blame everybody else for why their life is the way it is, you're going to eventually be that person, to where he or she is going to blame you if the relationship doesn't work out, or if it's not going the way it's going to go. So, really pay attention to that. If someone is always, blaming, minimizing, or denying the things that they have done in that relationship, and they're always, trying to blame you. And the big telltale sign for me is whenever you're having, arguments or conversations, the word "you" comes up all the time. You do this, you do that, you. That to me is that should tell you that this person isn't taking accountability for anything, and they're telling you what you should be doing,
right?
And not looking at them and saying like, okay, I can do this. What can you do in order to help this work out?
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
100%. You have one more?
I do. So I think another red flag, and that kind of goes into what cheating, but also just like not trusting the other person, or constantly fearing that they're doing something to harm you, right? Yeah. Like if your partner doesn't trust you and always has to know where you are, who you're with, tracking your phone, showing up at places like your work because they're suspecting you're doing something, that's a huge, huge red flag. Yeah. And I think can be really dangerous in a relationship.
100%. That kind of goes into like, we talked about stalking in one of our podcasts that we do. And so that's 100% could turn into something to where, someone is now following you and making sure you are where you say you are. And that can get scary real fast. Yeah,
stalking is really serious. And like Aaron said, we've talked about it on our podcast before. It's called Unplugged: Surviving to Thrive. You can catch it on any platforms that podcasts are streamed on.
Low key plug.
High key plug.
High key plug. So I think one more red flag that I have is how people act around their friends.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
So if and I used to be that guy, lovey-dovey with the girl that I was with. I get around my friends, I'm just like all macho and like, I don't need no love. All tough. You know what I mean? And then when I'm with her, I'm like lovey-dovey.
Yeah.
And so at some point you start to question, who is the real person?
Yeah.
Is he the real person that's with his friends, or is he the real person that's with me? And if you having a hard time discerning, the person that you're with as far as like who they are as a person, that to me tells you that to me is like a big red flag in that relationship. So something to think about.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's all that I have for red flags. The red flags and the green flags that we went over, these are just like some that we came up with and wanted to share with everybody. And every relationship is different. Yeah. And I think some of these that we said, you know what I mean? You can interpret them the way that you want to. But these are just some basic ones that we think are important for people to know. For
sure. And I gotta give a shout out to my wife, Erica, because she helped me out with some of these green flags. And she said to make sure that she
gets
the credit for helping me out. So
she deserves the credit too.
All the credit.
Yeah.
For sure. Do we have any questions or anything from anyone? No? Okay. So, I mean, I think that would conclude our conversation.
Yeah, that's
for
all
today.
that we
So-
have for you guys. We'll talk to you next time.
And if you want to reach out to us via Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, we have all the platforms. So if there's something that you want to talk about or a question that you have, you can reach out to us on those platforms. But you can also call the Crisis Center, and we can try to help you out. Figure out whatever question that you have. So
Yeah.
yep.
Awesome. Thanks,
That's it.
guys.
Yeah,
Bye.
have a good one. Bye bye.